Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SpyParty Masters Championship round-robin match between Nebula and Legorve Genine. I'm Corvus Mallory, and I'm joined today by my co-caster Warning Track.
Happy to be here.
And on the analyst desk, we have Guggy.
I'm also happy to be here.
We have got a match between Nebula and Legorve Genine, two players who have big histories here in the community, huge amounts of success. Lots of clout behind them, but they got thrown into the same group in SMC. And let's take a look at how that group is shaping up. You'll see it here down in the bottom of your screen. It's got Rav, Nebula, Legorve Genine, and the winner of Adafiash versus Lev T, which will be cast actually later today. So an absolute monster group, and these two players have it all to play for, looking for one of the top two slots that will advance out of groups and into the Champions semifinals.
Yeah, this group has, I think, the last three cup winners in them, actually. Up top, on the top of your bracket there, you can see that's kind of more like a legacy group. Obviously, it's all champions here with challengers on the left. But a little bit more of a legacy group up top with players who have a long competitive history and maybe a year or two ago would have been considered the best of the best but haven't played as much recently. Whereas here at the bottom, you have players who have been playing a lot and have been winning events recently. And that's kind of one of the interesting things about this is that you look at Legorve, who won the 2021 Summer Cup. They're playing against Nebula, who won the 2022 Summer Cup. And that is sort of the question here, which is, do you take the competitive history as a whole, which probably favors Legorve, or do you look at recent results, which probably favors Nebula?
Yeah, and so we're going to go ahead and just run through the draft here quickly, and then we'll take a look at both of these players and their histories. But let's get that draft up. We have Nebula banning Redwoods and Legorve banning Aquarium, Nebula restricting Balcony and Legorve restricting Library. We have doubled Gallery and doubled High Rise, and then our singles will be Courtyard, Ballroom, Tayen, and Veranda. So, I mean, Guggy, looking at these drafts, looking at these players, what can we expect from this match given this draft?
I mean, these are two of the players who I absolutely expect to have some crazy plays on at least one of these venues that they picked, probably the double. So I expect a lot of great vibe.
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out to me here about the initial bans and restricts is simply that when you look at their competitive histories, these are venues they've done pretty well as Spy, but venues where they have lower sniper win rates than they are accustomed to. So that seems to be the priority for both of them. That makes sense because they're both dominating snipers. They're both just trying to get rid of those venues where they're weakest on the sniper and kind of just hope that their Spy will break through on the other venues.
All right, well, before we get into the match, we do have some analysis here on both these players just to get people acquainted with their recent history. So we'll talk about Nebula first. Guggy, take it away. Tell us about Nebula.
Nebula is very much one of the two players I'm willing to say is one of the craftier spies that they own. The other being Legorve, but we'll get back to Legorve in a second. Nebula. I said Legorve, and I'm very confused myself. Nebula very much is a player who just played casually for so long and just is now playing competitively and plays competitively like he's playing casually. So he absolutely does not, I don't want to say he does not care about winning, but he definitely, if he goes into a deficit, he's definitely going to still play just as well if he's going ahead, which is very, very powerful. Nebula has, again, one of the craftier spies, and also he's just a wizard of a sniper. He knows way too much for my small goblin mind to comprehend, and he will shoot for way too much for my small goblin mind to comprehend because he's just super good. I don't know when I'm supposed to tell you to play the clip, but you can play the clip now if you want. Yeah, so Nebula very much is somebody who does not give up, and this is my example of that. At this point, he's done Seduce, he's done Inspects, he's done Fingerprint, and DA is out of conversation and is not going in. What does Nebula do? He doesn't give up, realizes the amp is probably going to come this way and going to get great bug the last few seconds. And even though that bug is great, he's still going to dance because he just does things. And he just wins that game. And it's the first game of the set. And I think a lot of people said, it's probably just luck, but he actually, I think, set that up specifically just because he knew the ambo was coming that way, because in a pinch, he is very calculated spy and knows, okay, the ambo is good chance going to come this way. And even that is the highest percentage play, because Nebula is just one of the best spies in the game currently. And Legorve. Legorve, I also want to say, is the other person with the very few craftier spies than me. He's one of those players who can take you by the collar and say, I'm going to win this spy game. You can do nothing to stop me. And you know what? He's right half the time, because he's one of the best spies in the game. He has so many crazy plays along with Nebula. I think somebody said, I think it was Track at some point, said that he had one of the lowest AT rates of the higher players. And he still is one of the best spies because he has just raw spy energy, and he's able to win games from the spy. And he just has innate, in this situation, this is the best play stuff. I'm saying a lot of things I said with Nebula because they're both great spies. And if you want to play the game, now he also is getting through on a Winter Cup second. So in this instance, he has just partial flirt done. I think this drink is printable, so he has print done. But he is going to go behind Shark, delegate to Rocker, and then he's going to start BBing to distract from the fact that Rocker is putting the book back, and he's going to BB. It's not real for anybody. And so while OP is paying attention to that, I think he's going to BB a second time once General joins, just to continue distracting, sipping wallet. And then while the Perline is going off, he's going to BB a third time, and he is going to watch Taft get shot because he just does a lot of things. And I was wrong. He did not have a printable drink. I forgot somebody got shot in that instance. He didn't actually win the game at that point, but he totally would have won that game because I think that was just a great, amazing play by Legorve, because both of these players are great, crafty spies and wizards of snipers. So I'm ready to see great spy play, and for those spy plays to get shut down immediately, because this is high level, and that's how high level works these days.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get into our predictions here. We don't have community predictions really for the individual round robin matches, so we're going to take those away here for these round robins. We'll get back to them as the round robin groups start to shape up. But for this individual match, we do, of course, have Nebula versus Legorve. I'll go first. I think Legorve has been a dominant player, almost defined an era, I think it's fair to say, of SpyParty shortly after the conclusion of SCL 6. Maybe for the next year, Legorve was the player to be frightened of the most. But has been absent from the community and top-level play for some time now. Winter Cup was really the last event that he played in and had significant success. Nebula, I think, is just a lot warmer, I think, in terms of the amount of play that he's been doing. I think Legorve has shown a little bit of vulnerability with some of the rust that he's accumulated. So for me, it's going to be a prediction for Nebula taking this game 10-6.
I think those are all good points, and that is kind of the thing I've been wrestling with, right? Is the overall skill versus the potential peak of each player, really, compared to where they're actually likely to land today. I have some scattered memories, don't quote me on this or anything, of Legorve performing particularly well in live matches. But we've seen the same thing from Nebula in, I think, a Summer Cup Finals a couple of years ago. I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here and say that old Legorve is going to be back. And that will be enough to edge Nebula 9-7.
I would love to say that this is a tie and have the easy answer right there, but that's cheating. You can't do that, clearly. And I'm the one to break the tie, so I'm gonna say 9-7. The question is, who is the 9 and the 7? I'm gonna have to give the. I'm gonna have to also agree with Track that I'm gonna give the edge slightly to Legorve. I think he has just that little bit extra oomph to him that Nebula doesn't have, that I'm going to give him like a slight edge. But if either of these players win, I'm not going to be surprised.
Yeah, I'm deeply uncomfortable with my prediction. I just want to put that out there right now. Because, yes, for the reasons Corvus says, which is just Nebula better more recently. And that is a very, very good rubric most of the time.
Yeah.
All right, well, there you have it. Those are your predictions, but it's time to get into this match, and we will get right into all of the action, starting on High Rise 3 of 6, with Legorve playing on the Spy side as Red Dress and Nebula on the Sniper side. Everybody ready to go?
Yes.
All right. Well, then let's get into the game in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
It's going to be Legorve as Red Dress on High Rise, as you said, and this is pretty standard also, as we like to say every time on High Rise now, 3-6, which is swap is almost always off, and fingerprint is usually left off in lieu of purloin, the logic normally being, and I know I say this every time, but some of you need to hear it, they like having 2 missions they can do late if things don't line up, not just a rush bug, but a rush purloin too.
Yeah, I think purloin has very much become the meta. It's just, especially now with a lot of high-tier players having very high green rates, Legorve, of course, as people have mentioned, is a small exception to that. But we do have plenty of time here. We have 3 minutes on the clock. Legorve is not playing this fast. Instead of observing the party, our seduction target already picking up a highlight, but unfortunately going to books, so not coming anywhere near us anytime soon. Legorve decides that it's time to move, and it's going to be heading to make that flirt happen. 2.5 minutes left on the clock. We will pick up the highlight for this, and I think Legorve felt that with the camera shake. That's not a good feeling when you're playing your first match against Nebula, and you might have just gotten flirt paired.
Yeah, that is really rough. And it is plausible on High Rise. You're going to think on a lot of venues, if that happens, you're not going to think much of it necessarily. You're going to think, no, I'm not getting flirt paired on Library, for example, or Veranda. But on High Rise 3-6, you absolutely might be. You mentioned Legorve, an exception kind of to the higher AT rates. You've seen a lot of top players as a fake contact, by the way. Coming right back to that in just a moment. But also Nebula, one of the other exceptions. Both of these players just a little over 50%, I believe, which is fine, but a lot lower than a lot of the other competitors they might be facing if they win today.
Legorve still playing this very slow, 2 minutes on the clock. We are up to just 1 more flirt required as our seduction target did join our conversation. We do a little redirect there off of nothing, and then we're going to go put this book back. Minute 45 on the clock as we head in. Still plenty of time here, but, you know, this is not mission progress.
No, although I wonder if that little redirect was specifically a response to maybe feeling that highlight and trying to lose a little heat. These are the kind of things that will be noticed. Flirt pairing will be noticed on High Rise, and so will little redirects by players like Nebula, for example. So potentially significant there. Only about 80 seconds left on the clock. Seduce isn't quite done, although our seduction target joins right next to us right afterwards. It did not have to be right next to us, but we'll take it, I guess. We're the first one there, not the second, and that helps a lot. Seduction is done. We're being offered a drink and a bug as the ambassador walks right up to us, and that's going to get us to mission win countdown here. We're going to take a drink innocently, and you could feel Nebula considering this shot, and I don't think they're going to take it. Legorve is going to go up 1-0 on High Rise.
That bug is so opportunistic. It's the perfect way to bail out of this game, and I love that we were able to find that. We're being offered here, and of course purloin is kind of the obvious, you know, get something, make something happen, but look at the camera movement from Nebula, just a little bit too much going on. We do take the drink to distract from any consideration about the bug, and Legorve with the contact just gets all 3 missions done in the span of, like, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds or something. A fantastic move from Legorve, and that's going to earn him the very first win in this set as Spy.
Wow, very impressive. As you said, obviously most of the seduce happens earlier, but the actual mission completions happen within 10 seconds of one another. And I love the drink take, so that any little movement from the bug is maybe chalked up to that, and just to show that you're not bugging. You don't want to bug and then get shot for a mistaken phantom bug after you've bugged. Nebula all over it, but sometimes the party gives you a little opening, and there's not a whole lot the sniper can do if the spy is perfectly opportunistic as Legorve was. That is such a big statement win to start this off.
All right, well, we're getting into our next game of High Rise. Nebula, of course, very capable of answering back, and we'll get into the game with Nebula playing as Irish in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
And both missions that were off in the previous game are on this time. Swap and Fingerprint are in, Microfilm and Inspect are out. Very interesting.
Inspect out is something that has been tried a couple of times on High Rise. I would say it's definitely not the most popular format, but it does, I think, give a lot more agency to the spy. I mean, if you leave Inspect on, it's kind of saying like, well, maybe an AI will finish Inspect, and then it'll be a coin flip, or I'll be able to get them shot. Here, Inspect off, Nebula's saying like, I'm going to do a hard tell, and I'm going to win the game that way.
Yeah, and that's what happens at the higher levels more and more. I find that at, mid-tier levels or kind of lower high levels, if that's even a phrase, we're going to go for a briefcase here, by the way, and pick up a highlight as well with only 20% of the flirt. Then those kind of lower high levels, it would be that 50-50 that you mentioned. Would I finish, or is that an AI? But I feel like snipers have gotten to the point where when the spy finishes that way, they almost always get shot. I guess snipers are getting better. I'm happy to not be part of that complication anymore because it seems scarier and scarier. But I feel like increasingly, snipers win those games, and it's going to be more and more about getting hardtails by and not just kind of playing the softtail, would they or won't they game of chicken.
One of the other people we've had on this stream mentioned that SpyParty is more and more coming down to just one instant, one moment. I think among some snipers like Nebula, more pathing-oriented snipers, that's not necessarily completely true, but it is definitely, as you mentioned, all about sneaking through that hardtail. We saw it on Legorve's game with that bug. Now Nebula has contact done and 46% flirt, but lots of options here. Fingerprint, we have one of those. Flirt, we have some of that, and now we're going in for a statue visit.
I think there might be a print on this, and we were talking about getting the hardtail done. Oh, maybe there isn't. Oh, we're talking about getting the hardtail done, but there's an indication here that Nebula's going to try to do it with the softtail instead, picking up that early fingerprint from the briefcase, and we just get shot anyway. Whether there's a print on it or not, I think Legorve thinks maybe there could be, and that's going to be enough for me. I don't think they like that briefcase, though. That's when the highlight came, and they've been all over them since. 2-0 Legorve, just like that.
Yeah, look at this. We do have the print left on the statue at 3 minutes, 10 seconds, and then it cooks all the way for a minute and a half down to a minute 40. But Legorve coming in here strong, winning the first 2 matches. Now, of course, this is Legorve's pick of high rise, but even still, that is a strong statement way to start off this set.
Yeah, I mean, you pick what you want, but sometimes it backfires, or at least the other player could very often at high levels, you just kind of split your doubled pick, and that's pretty normal. That's pretty standard. So to come out strong like this is a really big deal, and not done yet. Could easily cash this in, get 3 or 4, and put Nebula on the back foot early. We'll see.
All right, well, Legorve now playing on the spy side as Plane Twin. A little bit of a jam up here. We'll see if Legorve tries to take advantage of it in 3, 2, 1. Playing it.
Can we resist? We do, and it's probably a good thing because the Ambassador settled immediately and Nebula's laser was starting off the game right over it, and we get the seduction done instead. Is it going to be a green? No, it's not. It's going to be a white. 34% will take it, snipping at the same time as our fellow Doctor and Twin right here. Can't tell them apart from behind like that. Highlights coming out for books again. I'm starting to wonder if that was maybe not a flirt highlight so much as a book highlight in that previous game from Nebula, because they highlight a all-alone Disney there. We're going to go to the far statue here. We're going to get 2 inspects. Some of those are green. Doesn't really matter that much. Going to be interesting to see, and this is the same mission setup as last time, except transfer instead of swap on. Going to be interesting to see if Legorve actually does kind of lean into that 50-50. I think this is a good time to do it. Oh my goodness, a low light for the bump there. This is Nebula kind of rewarding the stuff we saw Legorve try to shake earlier.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm not, that low light, okay, that's really nice to have, but, how certain are you that you have that in your book at this point?
Yeah, this is not necessarily the kind of low light a spy can react to, and that's a big part of getting low lit or high lit, is how likely is it the spy knows it happens, can they react to it? I don't think they're going to want to be aggressive here, but they might have to be, which is kind of the point. If they're going for inspects like this, then they're already kind of committed to just finishing, and I think going up 2-0, leaning into that and kind of making them take that difficult would they softtail complete shot is kind of a pretty good move. I think it's a good move. You want the sniper who, again, is already started slow here, is already down 2-0. You want them to take those risky shots.
Coming up on a minute 50, we have a book in hand, but no book highlight, obviously. If we're planning to finish with inspects, we still have plenty of time. We're going to have to put the book back eventually, but 100 seconds is plenty of time to get a flirt, to put this book back, find some contact on high rise, and then finish up with a late statue visit. Legorve here has lots of options to finish this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's particularly good. You got the book, and there's no one else there, so that's kind of innocent. You're already low lit. Yeah, I think it's a fingerprintable book, but also fingerprint is off, so if the sniper's on their game, this looks very, very innocent. We're trying to get a low light that we already have, perhaps. There's a second white flirt. We knew it was going to be 3 anyway. We're going to stop talk afterwards. We got about a minute left, and we do have to dump this book, contact, get another flirt, and inspect, and that actually can take quite a while. We are going to be cutting this pretty close, even if we dump the book right now, which I think we need to do, unless we have some other plan in mind, unless we're going to waste some of this partial progress. 55 seconds is when we set off for this shelf. We're going to be the third at the shelf. There's Walt Disney, who I mentioned, still has that early game highlight. We're going to go in between Disney and General. This book's going to go back in. Flirtation cooldown has expired, 45 seconds. We're going to be cutting it very, very close here, and we might be at the mercy of our seduction target, so we might want to get that done first. But finishing with inspects, even as a low light, is very, very risky. We're going to do it now. We're going to go to side statue. 33 seconds left. We are not being watched at all, though. Not yet.
Yeah, we still have time to make this happen, but the double agent's out of conversation. Double agent's returning a briefcase. We have a chance if the double agent cooperates, but goes to painting. So now Legorve may be in full panic mode, and there's a swap pending. That has to be our out.
Wow. That has to be our out, and maybe we can finish silent then and not prompt a shot. We can go finish this right here, and the double agent joins conversation anyway. If we'd known that was going to happen, we might not have swapped. There's the mission win pending. The flirt is done. No one has been called over yet. Is it going to be another low light? It is. It's going to be another low light, and we get shot right away. I think if we'd waited and contacted, that might have done it, but it's very hard to say. Given how quick that shot came off, I can't tell if they were actually a big suspect all along, more than we thought, or if it all came together for Nebula in the end.
Yeah, what a shot to have to take. I mean, you have this low light walking around who's finished inspects and now goes for a fake contact with 6 seconds left. Like, why you're shooting there, I don't know. But you are taking that shot, maybe suspecting some kind of bug and thinking you're behind. But I mean, great job there from Nebula, coming back in a set that I think we were a little bit behind on, or maybe thinking this SDA might have been in conversation.
Yeah, that might have been part of it. It's also possible that the low light just means a lot less than we think. High Rise, like Balcony, is one of those venues where you can low light someone and not at all forget about them. Or even use it as a memory tool because it's not that hard to continue to track a low light. So possible we were overreacting to the low light. We'll find out at some point in the future. But if they were a genuine low light, that's a really good kind of comeback from Nebula to avoid falling behind 3-0.
All right, well, so far in SMC, almost all players have managed to 3-1 their double. So Legorve here now with the chance to do it on the sniper side. Nebula on the spy side is Boots looking to tie in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, I don't know if momentum is a thing always. People talk about it a lot. But if it is, you could say that Nebula managing a split with a win here after going behind 2-0 to start would absolutely steal that momentum back from Legorve. Very significant, possibly more significant than just trading off wins.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We got 3 minutes 10 on the clock, and the missions have changed up again. Inspects are back on. It's transfer and purloin off. So actually full back into the softels. AIs can complete fingerprint. AIs can complete inspects. AIs can even be framed for a swap. So kind of the exact opposite of the mission setup we saw before.
Yeah, and in 4 high-rise games, we haven't seen the same mission setup even once. I don't think I've ever seen 4 different mission setups on 4 consecutive high-rise games like this in SCL or any other event.
And it can be confusing if you're the sniper trying to play against that. You have to keep resetting what it is that you're looking at. I mean, these are extremely talented players, and Legorve, of course, a daily monster, is used to having to deal with unorthodox mission setups, but even still, this is not the kind of thing that's easy to do by any means. And Legorve's going to have to adapt on the fly to Nebula spy play.
It is very difficult. You say they're very good players, and that's true, but part of being a very good player is having a very strong routine, and turning off parts of that routine. For example, on the rare occasions where bug is off, not watching the ambassador anyway, not watching statues or memorizing them when swap is off. It's a very easy thing to forget because those routines are so strong, and that's why they're so good. Nebula stands next to the ambassador, but with a drink in our left hand, we are no threat to bug, and we just use it to break up the flirt, which I'm personally a fan of for sure. We're close enough here that even a white test will get it done, but it's green just for good measure. We do have a highlight, and we stop talk, but the seduce is done with 1 minute and 45 left on the clock. We really don't have any clue about how this game's going to go because seduce was the one thing we were pretty much taking for granted.
Yeah, we got that highlight right after we went to stand next to the ambassador. I don't know if Legorve was maybe a little bit nervous about that positioning next to the ambassador, or if, as you were saying, the highlight here just means like, Boots is a little weird, I'm going to keep an eye on her. We do have a couple of highlights floating around the party, and that couple is us and Kane. It's only 2. We rejoined conversation with the seduction target, but as you said, time is starting to tick down. We're going to go for a contact, but there's a question, I think, of how we finish this game.
Yeah, everyone is in conversation for it at least, and roughly split between the 2 conversation circles with the DA and the SDA, so you can't ask for much better than that. Smallman is a highlight too, but you wonder if that counts. It might just be a Smallman highlight. There's a fake right afterwards too. Gotta imagine if it's gonna distract from something like a bug, and that is exactly what happens, and there's a lean. Has Legorve seen it? They've got 7 seconds to shoot. I don't know if they want to do it though. It doesn't look like they're gonna, and is Nebula gonna pull this back and split high rise? They are. absolutely tremendous. Surprised that worked because we did not have a lot of cover, but the good old fake into contact into a bug rather, pardon me. It's an oldie but a goodie, and this is why it works against the best sometimes.
Yeah, there was just so much sniper movement going on at that moment when the bug came off, running around trying to find the lowlights. There's enough time left on the clock that taking the lowlights is worthwhile for sure, but when the ambassador's in that much danger, you open yourself up to this bug, and that's exactly what Nebula does. We saw it actually in Guggy's highlight clip, and now we're seeing it again. That bug's going to win the game for Nebula and split high rise 2-2.
Oh, I was feeling smart there for a second about my narrow Legorve prediction, but now maybe not so much. Nebula comes roaring back, and high rise, Legorve's double, is just wiped off the books as a non-entity, and we are starting again from scratch on Nebula's gallery.
Yep. Now, as a reminder, we do play all 16 games in round robin because the extra games count for tie breaks, but it really is mostly about the W, and Legorve now, even with the even score, kind of has a hole to climb out of. Going to try to do it as sick on what else could it possibly be but gallery in 3, 2, 1, playing.
Yeah, just a really significant win there, and one that I'm, again, a little surprised by. We didn't have a lot of cover, but as you said, a lot of sniper movement. That's the thing. If you're zooming in and out while those things are happening, your eyes don't really adjust. You catch bugs by keeping stationary and watching that movement. The lean is so much more obvious when you're not scrolling back and forth or zooming in and out, but that's the decision. That's the trade. Do I want to assume that this is not leading into a mission win countdown and I have time to take lowlights? Because otherwise I want to be shooting. By the way, we have been low-lit for pathing early in the game here. Nebula has now done this twice, although they pulled it back on the high-rise games. Might be a little harder on gallery, though.
Yeah, I mean, Legorve picking up a low light on gallery. Now, I am not confident that Legorve here can have any reasonable expectation that he's low lit.
No.
But if you're playing gallery, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, unless you're going for some really bad bugs, which against Nebula you probably don't want to do as a low light anyways, it's not really clear that this low light is going to change the way that you play. You're still going to look for some kind of opportunistic transfer, some kind of opportunistic bug. But Legorve starting off at Bookcase has lots of options with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, certainly. And you can see we walked right by the ambassador, and if we knew we were low lit there, we are almost certainly taking that bug. So no, I don't think Legorve knows. Although they might kind of catch on to the fact that these things are just happening, given that it's happened once. When they see this second replay and see another low light for some sort of pathing move, they might start assuming it or even trying to bait it a little bit more. On the other hand, Nebula, seeing that it's happened twice in just 3 spy games, might start thinking better of taking those.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nebula is not the kind of player I think is going to be exposed to too much tilt for these lowlights. An extremely experienced player, plays very, very long sets, and, there's going to have these ups and downs. But if Nebula is able to find this shot, I think that could be devastating to the match momentum, getting shot again as a lowlight.
Yeah, seduction done there for Legorve, and we're going to go back into green bookshelves here. We've already been here once, and I kind of wonder if this is more low-light fishing when we already have a low-light. We saw it in high-rise. We might be seeing it in gallery. We do have a lot of cover for this. If you're going to microfilm, this is when you would do it, and we do, and it's a green test as a low-light on the green shelf with cover from gallery. You're not going to catch that. I don't care who you are. But that is the quote-unquote easy half of the animation microfilm on gallery. Blue, much less cover, even as a low-light, and Legorve, by all accounts here, I think, does not know they are one. The ambassador is going to leave a fingerprint on the statue and on that briefcase that's by the statue as well. I think we're going to be obligated to take this, so we might just go ahead and do it. We are going to do that, and that's the kind of thing that can get you noticed as a lowlight for sure, is taking a fingerprintable briefcase right in front of the sniper. No change to the lighting scheme here, though. It looks like we're protecting the ambassador in the back a little bit. 80 seconds left, and we still have a long way to go, but the longest mission, Seduce, is done, so we could rush this and get missions done in a hurry like we did in that first high-rise game. More bumping from Legorve. We don't have time to lowlight fish, though.
No, we don't. I mean, if we got one print and we're this low on time, we must be thinking about the print on this statue. At this point, it's just a question of how long we're going to let it cook. Legorve walks right past it, so...
Oh, it's got to be a time ad. It's got to be a time ad now, right?
50 seconds. Oh no, there's no space! Okay.
Oh no, but we're zoomed in. Nebula does not see. Even if we weren't a low light, even if we were a highlight, I don't think we would have been in any trouble there. We're going to get the contact, and we're going to split, and we're already a low light, and we're not going to be suspected at all. We're going to give off a few more, though, and you can see Duke gets brought up for that, too. So we have a lot of ways to finish here, but walking back inside means we have to finish inside now. We need to finish. It's going to be microfilm and what? Microfilm and bug. Microfilm and fingerprint. 30 seconds left. Microfilm takes a while with the animation. 3 low lights at bookshelves. We've got Red Dress covering our right arm, and the ambassador drawing attention outside. This is the time to do it. We wait a little bit longer. long, but we're not zoomed in, and even a white test means we're going to be fine. That is going to be 3 missions and a fingerprint to go, perhaps, or a swap, or a bug. 10 seconds.
There's no
10
time.
seconds.
We cannot get this. Can we get this print? There's a print on the statue, on this bird. This has to be it. 4 seconds.
Oh, no.
We're going to get it.
But
we're
overtime, then we brought up to a highlight. And if we go to overtime now, that's almost definitely going to do it. That's almost definitely going to do it. There's the mission win countdown. Overtime. A shot's got to come off. 4 more seconds, and it happens just because we went to overtime. That's what cost us the game. It was a legit low light until the very end.
What a catch-up from Nebula. Just, despite the low light, tracking us still through that entire 4-minute gallery game, knowing we had the mission count, crediting us with the contact outside, being able to take that shot, or just saying like, well, there's overtime. Who else could possibly be finishing at this point? It has to be someone at statues. But choosing to be able to shoot the low light at statues there is, that's why Nebula's here.
I mean, that was clearly a legit low light, given how close Legorve came to finishing without even being brought back up. And the fact that it took them 5-some seconds even into the overtime to take the shot. They were not the automatic shot. You could tell Nebula not really seeing what was going on and kind of inferring what must have happened, but not being sure of it, clearly. So if Legorve paces that slightly better, they absolutely win that game. It would have been a devastating spy win, potentially. That is now 2 lowlights for Legorve that end up in 2 sniper wins for Nebula.
All right, well, speaking of pacing, Nebula is going to be pushing into limit here on Gallery as Pearls, our slowest character. In 3, 2, 1, playing.
I mean, Legorve has absolutely been on point here, and Nebula, you have to say, has gotten away with these aggressive lowlights. That is the game in particular where Legorve was in a position to punish those aggressive lowlights, and it just has not happened. I think if they just pace it slightly better, even getting the Seduce done early, the problem is animation microfilm takes a long time. Even when they took the book out, they waited 5 or 6 seconds. They didn't have to because they didn't feel that lowlight like you talked about. They didn't know they were low-lit. If they take that bug earlier in the game, for example, right after the lowlight, they win. If they do animation microfilm a couple seconds earlier, they win. If they do 50 other things differently, they win. But instead, they do it just the way they did it, and that long, long overtime is the difference. Nebula grabs the green book, and we might be walking all the way outside. We like to say that this book is being cleaned when this happens. If you hang on to the book for a long time, you walk it outside, they kind of forget where it's from. Who would do that? Well, Nebula would do that, but here's the problem. With any character, let alone a slower one, as you alluded to, this is going to eat up so much of your time, even if you get away with this bug, and it sure looks like you're going to. I don't think Legorve could have possibly protected that adequately, but even if they march right back in, and I use march very loosely with this character, and dump that in blue, you've already used up so much time.
That bug is just, it's so disgusting here from Nebula. We saw almost the exact same bug, I think it's fair to say, on High Rise, where, like, you're just doing it in the sniper's face. You don't really have, like, a clever setup here. The ambassador comes next to you, you bug them. There's not really a lot going on at the same time. It's kind of in a hard-to-see place. Like, Legorve was looking at that conversation. It's not like we were zoomed in and focusing on the inside, but, there's just people in the conversation. It's just a good, solid bug.
And the ambassador came in after us. We did not approach them. And that's a big difference. When you see someone approach the ambassador like that, you're more likely to watch them than if the ambassador happened to walk by then, because now you're not just thinking, am I going to miss the bug, but you're going to think, am I going to miss a bug where the ambassador was basically in league with the spy? Is the spy going to be lucky enough to be standing there when that happens? We are walking this green book all the way back to green. There's only 2 minutes left. Seduce is nearly done. This is either going to be an animation microfilm or a very, very long waste of time with what I assume must be a very good book.
Legorve is certainly susceptible to taking these lowlights for these innocent returns. I don't think it's going to happen in this game, even with no microfilm. I don't think Legorve is going to give Pearls that credit at this point, and the book goes back. Okay, Nebula, has the bug, has 85% flirt, but also only has 1.5 minutes to finish this game, so it might have to be statues as we enter into that, and I think Legorve, just like Nebula, is capable of crediting that bug, and is capable of taking the shot depending on how Nebula finishes.
This is interesting. Inspect, not commonly completed by Nebula on Gallery. In fact, until the last year or two, was their least completed mission on Gallery. By the way, they completed Seduce in 100% of their early Gallery games. You never see that. Usually, if only because there's a civilian shot or something first, and there it is, keeping up that mark. Seduce is completed, Bug is completed, and now we can inspect and what? Inspect swap? With 1 minute left, this might be early enough that will not prompt an immediate level of insta-shot kind of suspicion when we go there, but we are facing the sniper. We're going to complete inspect here, and whether or not there's a fingerprint on the statue will probably determine how we're going to finish. We are marked suspicious for completing inspect, so Legorve does seem to be on this. Do we dare swap in a place we don't think they would look? We do not, and that's probably wise, but with 35 seconds left, we've got to find that hardtail. The ambassador's right there, but we walk in the other direction. Very surprising.
Yeah, I mean, contact is still on the table, and the double agent is out here. So if we just take this contact, it's going to be Legorve's game to shoot. Here comes the contact. It is white. We zoom out briefly to see us talking. There's the contact, and the shot comes. Yes, Legorve not going to let that one go. Inspect completion. Some suspicion for that bug. Legorve finds the shot, and Legorve stays alive in this game, 3-3.
Yeah, it could be suspicion for the bug, but it also could just be, hey, they're completing inspects late, and I've kind of had my eye on them, and they've been moving around a lot, and that might be enough. It could be any of the above when you're dealing with someone like Legorve, and we went from almost a dominant position to needing a very tough shot there with what we think is an unseed bug just to keep even. However, Legorve responding to Nebula the same way, saying, I know this is your pick, but I'm keeping you in a dead heat anyway.
All right, well, here comes Legorve playing as General on his last Gallery Spy, trying to stay alive in the match on Nebula's pick in 3, 2, 1, playing it. And I think it's fair to say that Legorve has been fairly vocal about his distaste for Gallery. Of course, not one of his bans or restricts in this match, but I think he'll be happy to get out of this, to move on to Ballroom. Even Courtyard 3 of 7, I know, is a place where Legorve is maybe more comfortable than a lot of people. So he may be thinking, look, if I can get out of the doubles with a split, I'll still feel okay about that.
Yeah, obviously that's not something you would have taken when you were up 2-0 or up 2-0 in low lit or whatever on high rise, but you will take it potentially when you've already split your doubled pick. And so far this is living up to the billing, which is to say, hey, all three of us, I think, had a lot of trouble maybe with our predictions this time. A lot of variables that are hard to account for, skill peak versus recency bias versus all sorts of other things, and so far it is all knotted up. But if you're Legorve, you have to think your spy is playing extremely well, even though it hasn't translated into as many wins as you would like. We also have the lowest possible flirt here, 17%. That's the lowest you can get. And our seduction target leaves right afterwards. And this gives us a little bit of distance, potentially. There's a cooldown expire, and we could join them right here on this pad, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Try to get this back up into range. And no, the seduction target leaves right afterwards, and being patient there maybe cost us a little bit. Our seduction target joins back in the conversation afterwards, but there isn't a whole lot of space next to them. We're not going to take it. We don't want to chase. Don't want to seem too aggressive against someone like Nebula, especially because, look at that, with almost no progress, we already have a highlight.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate news for Legorve. You know, not a low light this game, but instead a highlight. I feel like every game we've been one of the two for reasons that are, you know, a little bit opaque, I think it's fair to say, to us. But at this point we have very little mission progress, so Legorve decides to go for a green time ad. This is the first time ad of the set on game 7. So this is an opportunity for Legorve to try to make some progress and challenge Nebula to see, okay, you're watching all this, are you watching the clock?
Are you watching the clock, especially a response maybe to that first game where a few extra seconds would have almost certainly gotten them the win. And yeah, we're either low lit or we're high lit. And if you're Legorve, you're hoping, though, that the low light means as little as the highlight and vice versa, because the low lights didn't win you the game. You hope the highlight doesn't lose it for you. But I like the time ad move here. It's also playing against type for Legorve a little bit. They have a particularly low time ad rate across most of their games, a little over 13%, which contrasted with someone like Nebula, it's over 20, which is closer to normal. I think probably a good move, especially given those time management issues in the beginning and the difficulty of finding the flirt so far here. But we do find a spot next to our seduction target out front here, and hopefully we can get this into range, into 3 flirt range. It is a green, gets us up to 62. That is a very significant AT. Now a close white will get this done. As you can see, the clocks aren't the same, but on the spy side, the one that matters, 250 left, and Seduce most of the way done, so that time ad is absolutely being put to work.
Time ad is always such a give and take. Against pure camping snipers, it puts a lot of extra pressure on them because they have to play the game longer. Against more behavioral or pathing snipers who focus on lowlights, it may just give them extra time to find those lowlights. But against Nebula, we've seen Nebula take those lowlights but still have to commit the mental energy to keeping track of them. They're not hard lowlights that Nebula just abandons. And so the time ad here, despite giving Nebula a chance to find more lowlights, is not necessarily making the game any easier for him, and it's certainly making it easier for Legorve, who's going to be able to complete Flirt.
Yeah, Flirt is completed there, and, you know, a lot of times people get kind of freaked out when someone keeps track of their lowlights. They think, well, geez, you know, if they can take all those lowlights, but they can also still shoot me for being a lowlight, how do I exploit it? And the answer is something you kind of just mentioned there, which is to say they're still watching their lowlights, so don't be too freaked out. their lowlights are actually not as valuable to them. Lowlights are not worth as much if you keep looking at them, obviously, especially because they're harder to see. It's only particularly valuable if they can not watch them anymore. That's when the real value of the lowlights come in, when you lowlight someone and they are dead to you, and they can complete missions right under your nose. If they're still watching your lowlights, though, then it doesn't hurt as much that they're taking them on you. Legorve waiting for some sort of opening here. Seems like they really want a bug, but nothing really lines up. We've joined a conversation here that is completely useless to us unless we want to purloin with our back to the sniper. I don't know that we do. We are still high-let. Seduce is done, and we've used up a minute and a half since I mentioned that they were putting that time ad to work. I think the double agent has joined us now. It's going to be a red test contact. Our back is to the sniper. I think that was probably seen. Low lights coming out galore. Nebula maybe not sure who did it, but sure of several people who didn't, and then just takes the shot anyway. The red test AT from Legorve gives away the game.
Yeah, I think, a good idea taking that purloin alongside the contact, maybe thinking Nebula's going to be busy, taking all those low lights, and Nebula's not going to give up the tray, aware that this could be happening, sees the list gone, probably suspicious of the cough anyways, and Nebula holding it down on the sniper side. We had 2 spy wins on high rise, but we are not going to have 2 spy wins on gallery.
No, absolutely not. And that tracks. Gallery, it's much, much tougher. I have 2 thoughts about that, though. One is that you could say maybe it's one of those ATs where the player is specifically getting the little green sliver right on the edge that they would normally let go or not take a chance on, but because they were trying to get a green contact into green purloin, they had to go for it and take the chance and hit the red. Could be that. It could also be that the purloin was a response to the red and they think, well, I better just go all in anyway and just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall, and that they were not going to do it before then, given that their position was not particularly advantageous for it. Seems to rely on the green. Either way, though, obviously the red test either forces them to do something they didn't want to, or makes it that much more obvious when things fall apart. And now Legorve has to snipe just to keep even.
All right, well, this is going to be our final game of the first half. After this, we'll turn it back over to Guggy for some quick analysis on what we've seen. But let's finish off our gallery games. Nebula playing as Queen on 3, 2, 1, playing.
It's kind of been a messy set so far. A lot of games that look like they're over one way or the other. And I think if you're Legorve, you're thinking, I've played better so far, but it hasn't translated into anything. Nebula with a very aggressive early flirt for 17%. You don't see that too often. We're going to leave, turn around, come right back, and our seduction target says, no, 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 no. You walk out on me, I walk out on you. I am not going to make it that easy for you. They are going to stand here at this pad, though, and we're going to chase them pretty nakedly. Pretty interesting. Legorve kind of did that earlier and might have gotten highlight for it as general. Nebula, though, not going to suffer the same fate, but the seduction target leaves again. We are chasing them all over the place, and we still only have that minimum flirt to show for it.
Purloin.
And perhaps aggressively, annoyingly, we think, well, okay, I got to get mission progress somewhere. It's going to be a green purloin at this pad. Orange Sari is going to maybe reject quick enough to be a purloiner, be part of that chain afterwards. We're not sure. The next player, Green Dress here, is going to take it. It's gone, and there's a huge immediate reaction from Legorve, low-lighting the taker. That's significant. Low-lighting the person who actually took the list, but zooming around, wondering who else could be, and this sniper movement does not look very confident after that initial low-light.
No, it doesn't. I mean, okay, we got one out. We know it was a green fade, and so that's good for us. But if Legorve is in, has avoided the, there's been a purloin moment, but if we don't know who's in the chain, and that kind of reject when you're at the painting pad and you're stacked up with 2 other people, it may not even be clear who's being offered at that point, or even that there is an offer happening. Legorve could be feeling way behind. Now, that could pressure him to take a shot. If I had to pick any player in SMC to take a shot when they really just didn't have enough information and still find the spy, Legorve would be up there probably in the top quarter.
Yeah, very significant here. By the way, the microfilm is done there, and you can see Nebula with their foot on the gas, trying to really put this away to finally kind of break serve here. There's another flirt. We got one in the meantime. Oh, it's canceled! Seduction target leaves for the 3rd time this game. 2 minutes left. We're going to bounce off the briefcase, I guess. I don't know if we were obligated to take it or not. We might be low-light fishing again. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Is the seduction target going to make up for lost time? And they are. They're actually going to join with us for once, and it's a green test, and that gets it done. And all is forgiven now if you're the spy talking to their seduction target. That's all you wanted, was just once come to me instead of running away from me. It works, and we have 90 seconds left to do one mission, and that mission could be contact, and we are joining with the double agent, and it is out front, and this is going to be a very tough shot for Legorve, but they might realize they need to take that tough shot, knowing that the purloin's gone and not knowing who did it. 1:25 left on the clock. Big moment of truth coming up. We're talking before contacting, though. We want more people in. We might want Orange Sari in particular, if we were paying attention to how that went down. The double agent leaves and then comes right back. Brief little heart attack there for the spy, I'm sure. A little over a minute left, though. We are clearly waiting to make this contact a little better.
Orange Sari now in, and here comes the contact immediately. Low lights coming from Legorve. That's not going to be a shot. The shot comes up on Orange Sari anyways, and that is going to be Nebula going up in the set at halftime, 5-3 on the back of that Purloin and transfer.
And there it was. It looked like a super quick reject from Orange Sari. It was so quick that you wonder whether or not it was too fast to even take as a reject. This was after our green Purloin, and that's the kind of thing, though, a sniper's necessarily not going to be confident about. I can see you scrolling to it there, right there. Look at how quick this is. We get the green Purloin, Nebula does, and then we offered Orange Sari right here, and it's down for 1/1000. Oh, not even a full second, but that is also something a spy would do, and you can tell, I got to give Legorve a little credit for even seeing that, because their shot, while the wrong one, was the most understandable wrong shot they could have, and they correctly sensed that this game was ending. But Nebula, on the strength of 2 hardtails, even with a difficult seduction target, finally breaks the tie going into the break.
All right, well, that is the top half of your set. Nebula coming out 5-3. And we're going to flip it over here to the analyst desk. So, Guggy, tell us a little bit about what we saw in the first 2 venues, what we can expect in the next, and then we're going to turn it over to your highlight clip as well for you to walk us through a really significant piece of the action. So, Guggy, over to you.
I mean, I think I said this during the start, and I said these were 2 of the most fun crafty spies, and I feel validated, because I think like 6, 7 of those games were some of the most fun games I think I've seen in a while. Again, these 2 are great spies, great snipers. They've shown it, and I think both are, I wouldn't say at the top of their game. They've made a few mistakes, but who doesn't? So it's not understandable. And I, for one, am ready to move on to the next few games. Unfortunately, I'm contractually obligated, not really, but I'm obligated to talk about how the set is going and how it's going, and also show you a clip. I might as well share the clip now, and then I'll keep talking, because it's a very good clip. This is Gallery. I think we can all agree both of the players at this point are a little bit on the back foot here. Nebula sort of has low-lit the spy, which nobody ever wants to do. Nobody wants to low-lit the spy. And Legorve has 25 seconds left and needs to get 2 missions. If you want to play it so I can keep talking. But both of them, Legorve, even though he has very little time, knows that there's a print there and has a solid plan. He's going to get the microfilm. He's going to go. He's going to get the prints. And that is going to be the game. Unfortunately, he just does not have a lot of time and knows there's going to be some overtime. But that is probably the highest percentage plays he has, unless he wants to go for a Purloin. Now, Nebula, knowing that this is somebody going to statues at the very last point, highlights Legorve and doesn't instantly shoot when the overtime happens. He waits. He thinks, is this the right shot I have to take? And goes, I have to take a shot, and this is the best one. Both of them played very well in the last 30 seconds there. And both of them are great in general. Again, I'm really excited to hear the next 8 matches, because they have been playing super well, and they hopefully will continue to play super well on some of my favorite venues are coming up. So I'm sure they'll pull some things out.
All right, well, that is our top half. Thank you, Guggy, so much for walking us through that moment. And I think that means that it's time for us to move on to Ballroom. That is going to be our next venue. And now we are on to the singles. Legorve's still going to be trying to pull this back. You still get a point for a draw, or dare I say it, 2 points for a win. Not at all impossible. But before we get to that, we have to get through this first game for Legorve to start moving. It's going to be playing as Queen on a Ballroom. Warning track, you ready to go?
I absolutely am.
All right, well then let's get into the game in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, Legorve starting here, and now suddenly just does not have that much more room to maneuver. Their opportunities came earlier. They didn't manage to cash them in with multiple lowlights of the Spy. They do get an early flirt here, by the way, but this is a good venue for Legorve. It fits their style pretty well. Both players, though, very strong. Plus 60% win as Spy, about 80% as Sniper. So pretty much what you would expect from any dominant player, which is more than half their Spy games and something like 4 out of 5 of their Sniper games. That's kind of standard for the best players on Ballroom. So what's going to give here, right? Because if it's another split, that doesn't help you if you're Legorve. That's not what you're looking for. The only question is, did Nebula give you those openings, and are there going to be any more? You might have already had your chances, and if they didn't kind of work out, they're not going to work out this time. We're going to stand across from our seduction target after that early 34%. This should probably just take us up to 51. That's exactly what's going to get us to with the white test. So we can still 3-flirt this, but we're going to need a close green to make it happen. Not as big of a problem here, though, as it was in the previous venue gallery.
Yeah, Ballroom is one of these venues that's been just slightly tilted in favor of Spy, given how dominant snipers are at the top level. For SMC, What a bug! Legorve just takes this bug and it's invisible.
Wow, absolutely massive, and that absolutely tracks too with Legorve. Other than Contact, Bug is their most completed mission, more than even Seduce on Ballroom, more than Purloin, more than Inspect, which is only 18% of the time. They almost always bug on Ballroom, and you can see why, and you can see how doing it over and over again has given them a lot of practice. Fantastic. Green flirt, our seduction target has not moved, so it's going to be a 4 flirt, but only because we didn't have to waste any time for it. We got a bug, we get a flirt with our seduction target still there, and now even a moderately close white will get this done. 105 seconds left, and even though we only have a mission and 3/4 done, we're in a very good position. We can avoid a lot of the other ways we might want to finish here, although Softail finish is still dangerous here against Nebula. Flirt cooldown expired as our seduction target finally walks away, and we take a little victory sip to finish that drink as Legorve here. Minute and a half left. The question is, do we want to inspect now if we're going to do it, or are we going to try something else entirely? Let's see where the seduction target settles first. They settle at green bookshelves, but right in the middle. We're going to have to smush up pretty close to them if we want to finish this. I really don't know how we want to do this, though. I feel like Inspect's a little more fraught than it would be against most snipers.
Minute 10. That bug is not impossible to see as a sniper, but it's not something that I think Nebula's going to give us any indication about whether he saw it or not until Legorve is shootable. Nebula, I think, unlike Legorve, is not going to take these statement shots. We saw from Legorve in his first sniper game, shooting very early in the game. Nebula's going to let it stew a little bit. So we have 2 missions done from Legorve. Contact, I think, is a given, but time is really running out for us.
Time is running out, and we're going to potentially here to center statues. Let's see. No, it's going to be side statues. Is this going to be a green swap into a contact, or are we going to go statue to statue? This is a big question. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be an inspect to start, which gives us a little bit of hint about what's about to happen here. 2 inspects. Are we going to go statue swap and go silent? That could be very powerful. No, it's going to be a green swap. Legorve going for the green swap again, like they did on High Rise as a low light. As the twin, we're going to walk right by the ambassador and pointedly not bug. We're going to pick up a side statue and pick up a highlight with it while the swap is about to go off. No one has come over to our statue yet. There's the inspect. Here comes Smallman to pick up the pending statue with cover in the back, and it's going to be overtime again. There's the swap. We are seen. Smallman's not, and when overtime happens, we get shot. And I wonder if it's just because we didn't even see Smallman there.
Yeah, I mean, you could see Nebula very clearly lining up the overtime shot, and is not going to make any secret about it. Is saying like, look, you know, if there's overtime, I have a top suspect and I'm going to shoot them. And I think if you're Legorve, seeing that laser just resting on you with 6 seconds left is such a bad feeling, because you already know before the trigger is pulled that you're dead.
Legorve is absolutely getting away with things, but they're doing it just 5 or 6 seconds too late. You can tell Nebula patient, frankly, too patient, waiting for overtime all these games, but getting it and making those shots, I don't want to say easy, but certainly a lot easier. These are 2 games I think Legorve would have won very clean if they just wasted a little less time. And it's one of those things where being a good meticulous spy maybe hurts you, because in both of those games, the gallery game is Seek and this game here is Queen, they were spacing their actions out appropriately. They spent all that time at bookshelves after the flirt. They don't rush through anything. I get it. You don't want to be rushing around. But in these cases, just a few seconds that you can shave off here or there in the chaos of Ballroom would have won you these games, and it would be a completely different outcome. Instead, it's Nebula 6-3.
6-3, and that is a potentially commanding lead. But now back on the spy side where nothing is guaranteed. So Legorve, if he can bring this back, he still has a chance to come back in this game. Just has to break serve once. I mean, 6-3 sounds like you're behind a lot, But honestly, it's just win a sniper game and then win through a single venue. So everything's still on the table. Nebula playing as Pearls again, this time on Ballroom in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Now, you're absolutely right. When you haven't sniped yet, particularly if you're a very good sniper, the score can look a little more lopsided than it is. Our seduction target settles in this conversation, and we settle right with them. It's Nebula as White Dress again, and I believe it worked last time. They've already tried it on Gallery of all things. In Ballroom, it doesn't hurt too much. In fact, it'd be really good for those reverse drive-by bugs. Because the, well, or any kind of bug for that matter, one of the only characters, I believe, where you don't even have to slow down walking by the Ambassador. You don't have to take a weird, jerky path. You can walk at your normal speed. Here comes the Ambassador, walk right by us. No bug opportunity there. But the flirt went really well. 51%, our seduction target, walks away right afterwards, and that opening kind of couldn't have gone any better, save for a chaos bug or something.
We've had some busyness in the party. We have Twin highlight at statues. We also have Boots highlight at center statues. So Nebula, I'm sure, keeping track of all of this. Legorve, of course, having to keep track of all of this. We have the highlight onto Toby from Legorve, just to make sure that he stays visible. Look, one of Legorve's very public weaknesses, I think it's fair to say, is the purloin. But Nebula not making a lot of movements here. We've seen these players take most of these games right down to the wire, and it looks like this will be no exception.
Yeah, probably not. Our seduction target is kind of walking all around since that early flirt, and suddenly we've kind of given back that early time advantage. A little over 2 minutes left, and that half flirt is all we have. You can see there in the bottom right corner of your screen what the seduction target is up to, just finishing their glass of wine, looking at a painting, I guess. These are all perfectly normal things to do at a cocktail party, but they're very, very inconsiderate for our purposes. When our seduction target finally settles, we're busy with the briefcase. Can we make it there in time? Can someone join this conversation? They do just in time, and we stand across from our seduction target. Interesting. It's going to be a green test, but that's still only going to get us to 77, so a decent white will get this done, but the question is, how much suspicion do we have for that first fingerprint? That seems to be the key. If you're a big suspect for the first fingerprint, you almost never finish, you almost never win, but if you get away with it, you're in really good shape.
Yeah, we have 90 seconds left. We still need to finish Flirt, and we still have, like, only progress on 2. So, innocent reject from Toby, not going to do anything there. Nebula, playing as a very slow character, is taking this way down on time. He's proven before that he's capable of doing this and still finishing, but it doesn't make me any less nervous about it, as we're almost down to 1 minute with 0 mission completions.
I feel like when Nebula has won spy games or had their best spy games, they got a lot of things done early in the game, caught Legorve flat-footed. When they have to rush late, I think that's when Legorve really burns you. So yes, I am extremely worried for Nebula here, and possibly also relieved for Legorve, who I think, barring some crazy stuff, is probably going to manage to pull this back a little bit.
Center fingerprintable statue. This will be 2 missions done. Quick highlight coming from Legorve and the rotate there to check for the early swap. I think Legorve at this point is going to be all over this. Those fingerprints are not going to be something he's going to let by. And okay, Nebula has 2 missions, almost 3, done at this point. And going for the bug as well.
That's the bug we were talking about. You don't have to slow down at all, but Legorve was zoomed in. Could not see the bug because you just can't see the bug from that angle or from most angles. But we clearly suspected. The question is, though, why haven't we shot? Look at that. We're 5% on the flirt away. Are we really not going to shoot here? I guess we don't suspect enough. We might have missed a print. We might just not believe in the bug. I don't know. But can they shoot here? Is it going to be overtime, too? 10 seconds left. If there's any overtime, it's only going to be a second. We're talking. We're visible. We're talking. We're glowing. Is Nebula about to put this away? Legorve's got to shoot now or forever hold their peace. They zoom in, and no! It's a win for Nebula. That is devastating.
That's so rough for Legorve. I think we were all over Pearls here. I think just didn't have the bug.
I guess so. I think Legorve may be thinking, hey, I'm zoomed in on this. I think I would have seen it if it were there. I would have seen the end of the arm, and I feel like you can just see the hand there on that replay. The very end. Maybe you can just see it. But here's the thing. This is where it comes down to confidence, where being a good sniper might make you too confident. Too confident you would see something, whereas a worse sniper, say me, would see that and say, I'm not sure if that was a bug. I have to credit it, especially after picking up a fingerprintable center statue and being highlit like that at the end of the ballroom game. That is a shot you've absolutely got to take, and instead, Nebula starting to run away with this.
Yeah, that's Nebula winning 4 games in a row. That is not going to be something that's super comfy to try to come back from, but Legorve's going to have to do it because Nebula is 1 game away from taking this to at least a draw. If Legorve wants the win, it's going to have to be the sweep on Courtyard, the sweep on Veranda, the sweep on Tayen, and it starts here on Courtyard, 3 of 7. Legorve playing as Duke in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
I'd say if it's Legorve on Courtyard, watch out for the swap, and here we go to statues almost immediately. But that kind of goes without saying because you've already seen Legorve swap twice this set. This is something Legorve is willing to do more than most spies. Instead, it's just going to be inspect here. Took too long. Started with a drink maybe, and that can ruin your early swap plans. Not sure it would have been a good idea anyway, especially because you're less likely to catch the sniper off guard when you've already done it twice in the set with the kind of randy swaps, as Pwn Noob likes to call them. We are going to do a fake contact here. I wonder if that's even intentional or if we were trying to flirt because the seduction target is right next to us. Either way, it's going to be a green. That's not going to be too bad. We see one low light. That's general. And highlights for a potential real here. And the funny thing is, we are one of them, but it wasn't real.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. It was a great fake contact. Like, everybody was in, but it was only really real for us, maybe. So, Legorve has earned a highlight for real. Now, of course, the other part of this is we were already been to statues. So, if we do a second contact to get real, I don't think it's going to be all that suspicious.
No, and in fact, it might even be good here. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that we pick up that early highlight for the statues. We do the fake. It's a good fake. We do another fake with 140 left. Pretty interesting here. Inspect done. Flirt half done. Our seduction target has not left yet. We're kind of headed for the standard Courtyard conundrum, but in a different order and by a different path than most spies take.
Yeah, 80 seconds left on the clock. Okay, we have Toby wandering around. We probably are
this
not...
big.
Yeah,
oh,
that
sorry
is
to
good
interrupt
right
there.
Before right before the ST leaves.
Yeah, had to take it, but if that's a green, our options open up, and instead it's a white, and the Ambassador comes right next to us. When the seduction target closes a door, the Ambassador opens a window, I guess, but it's not really going to do the trick because Nebula's watching it way too closely.
Coming up to a minute left in this game. Legorve has been here before, been pushed into overtime and been punished for it, and I'm worried that we may be heading that way as well. Seduction target is not really making any of this any easier for us. Now we're going to approach him, try to finish this flirt. We're in conversation with the double agent as well, so we can finish off 2 missions right here, and that would be mission win countdown. We've been neutral lit on top of it. Here comes the contact.
It's a red again! Another red for Legorve, same as on gallery. And is this going to be on screen? It is absolutely! And that is brutal. Legorve with a decent spy game marred by a red test action.
That is so rough. I mean, action tests are part of the game, but you hate to see those reds punishing like that when Legorve was in probably a pretty decent spot. If we get that contact, is Nebula really going to be able to shoot for one more flirt after we already have real contact in Nebula's eyes? So Nebula with that going up to 8 points and securing at least the draw in this round robin match, and Legorve needs to sweep the last 5 after Nebula has swept these most recent 5 just to keep it to a draw.
Boy, I swear I'm not trying to save face with that prediction of mine, but when you think about how this match could have gone differently, you don't have to change very much. 2 action tests, red contacts. By the way, the worst red tests you can generally get are contacts in that case, leading to 2 shots just seconds after they happened, and 2 spy games that go into overtime and almost certainly would have been wins otherwise. That would completely flip the script. But you figure you're going to win a couple of those. Instead, we lose all 4 of those spy games.
All right, well, here comes Nebula looking for just one more game to win the set. Now, of course, we do play all matches, so we will be playing it out. But let's get into our game with Nebula playing as Wheels in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, Nebula playing for the clinch here, for a dominating 9-3 win. As you say, for tiebreaker purposes, we are going to play all these, and it's always fun to see sometimes in those situations, since the tiebreaker is, let's say, a little not too likely to matter in the end, but sometimes you see players try things out and play a little differently, although it's hard to imagine it could be a whole lot more entertaining than what they've done in the games that definitely count. That's early statues for Nebula, same as Legorve. It did not work out for Legorve, but on 3-7 Courtyard, the logic of when to go to statues and take that road highlight is very different than on, say, 4-7.
And Nebula just runs right over to another statue, so we're going statue to statue on Courtyard 3 of 7. Not something you see that often, but it's going to be completely innocent from Nebula.
Yeah, completely innocent. And that's another thing, too, by the way. Character selection is going to matter a little less on 3-7. You might not pick Wheels otherwise. You lose some things there, certainly, like with Bug. Can be a little more obvious. And kind of fitting into these conversation circles with that kind of unwieldy hitbox can be tricky too. But on 3-7 doesn't matter as much. Inspec's done. We're going to get our first flirt in here with a low-lit seduction target who is Teal. 1:37 left on the clock when that first flirt comes off, and the seduction target runs away right away. But we do get the white test. It was close, 34%. We will take it.
Yeah, we're going to go find the seduction target again. We just both wander around courtyard. We're in conversation now with the double agent as well as the seduction target. 80 seconds left on the clock. Seduction target will leave, unfortunately. So that's unfortunate for Nebula, but at least we can take this contact while we're being offered a drink if we so choose.
Yeah, we could just aggressively go for it. When you have this kind of lead, I kind of am into the leaning into it aggression. You know, contact, purloin right there. But Nebula decides to take neither. Very interesting with a minute left. Instead, we are going to take the drink and take a look out at the courtyard, enjoying said drink. Seduction target, maybe we're just waiting for a little room. I think losing that seduction didn't matter too much. We weren't close enough for it to be another close white that would get us to 3. We were going to need a green, or we were going to need a 4th at some point. We're going to need to hit it eventually. There's an aggressive white and leave, though, and that gets us up to 68%.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like we're trying to get through that conversation at the time that it happens, so not clear exactly what Legorve thinks of it, if anything. But now, with 34 seconds on the clock, Nebula still only has 1 mission done.
Yeah, and we're not going to go time out either. We're going to try to finish the flirt first, and now we have a lot of ways to finish here, potentially. We could contact, we could purloin, we could rush the bug. The double agent is not in conversation. In fact, they're bringing the briefcase back to the ambassador. This is going to take a second here. We could fake it instead and see if a shot comes off. 15 seconds left. We're going to bug too as the fake comes off, and Legorve is not having any of it and says, you are not going to be coronated just yet.
All right, well, that is going to be Nebula going up 9-3 and taking this set. Now, of course, you know, I think there's still a lot of room to play here. I actually think the tiebreaks are not at all unlikely to matter in this round robin, given who we have playing. But congratulations to Nebula for taking this.
Well, I think Legorve wins that game and actually staves off. That's all right. Yeah, it's a little crazy out there. A lot of buttons, a lot of dials, in case y'all don't know. So Legorve not dead yet, although certainly, let's just say, being read their last rites still.
All right, well, we're going to try to get through the last 4 games of this match. And, okay, Legorve has recaptured a little bit of momentum after Nebula's 5 wins in a row. Still has a chance to bring it to a draw. Yeah,
certainly. And while that's a big ask, especially with 2 spy wins on Veranda, a spy win on Veranda and then 1 on Tan, I believe. If they win this game, I'm going to allow myself to get just a little bit hype about the possibility. But this, of the remaining 4 games, is the toughest one standing between them and that comeback draw.
All right, well, it is spy side of Veranda, Legorve playing as General, and we'll get the game going in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
This is just very big for so many reasons. Legorve does have the advantage on Veranda. Their sniper win rate is 96%, their spy win rate 38%. And while the spy win rate's a little better for Nebula, the sniper win rate's just in the 70s. So if Legorve wins this game, it's very likely they're going to take the next one too, and then it's just Tayen. So this is, like I said, I'll just say it again because it really bears repeating, this is the toughest game of the 4, blocking Legorve's comeback. If they get this, things start to get interesting.
3 minutes 45 left on the clock, and Legorve is going to go into Bookcase. It's a nice time for it. Ambassador's outside in a little bit of threat with Smallman there. Toby's wandering around on the left side close to us. But we do pick up a fingerprint off of this book, so that's good to see. Fingerprint this early in the game, if we can get the next one much later, could be a path to getting those 5 missions.
Yeah, I think Fingerprint on Veranda can be very powerful, especially when it's early, and pathing lowlights, which you've seen throughout this match from Nebula. Don't know if you're going to take them this time. Watch that. Look at that. Nebula guarding the Ambassador incredibly closely with Legorve walking by, and Legorve smartly elects not to take that bug. That is not a high percentage bug. We're going to join this conversation. It turns out this other person is not joining it, so we're going to idle once and leave as we are obligated to do. Question is, where are we going to go next? Are we going to get some inspect progress in? It looks like it.
Yeah, the rotation does come off from Nebula, catches us at that statue. We even pick up the highlight for it. But that's fine. You don't typically expect to be able to get away with one of these inspects on Veranda necessarily. So that's 2 inspects, 1 print, 1 flirt, 2.5 missions left. If Legorve can get this game done without going into overtime, I think our chances are a lot better. And we have a nice little stop there, too.
Yeah, not bad. This is shaping up to be a pure test the sniper game, which is to say this is a long, busy venue. I'm going to space my flirts out. I'm going to space my inspects out. I'm going to use my time well. I'm going to pick my spots, and I'm just going to force you to take a tough shot. I think that's a good way to play it at this point, but you absolutely cannot give them the crutch of overtime. I'm not even sure you can be finishing in the last 10 or 15 seconds, ideally, and that means you cannot be wasting a lot of time here. I don't know if you can wait for this flirt. You need to get more things done in more places. If you don't have it happen here, you're going to need to finish multiple things at one site later on. Are we going to get beat to this case? No. We're going to pick it up. The fingerprint is going to be done. I have no idea if this is suspected or not. And we're going to contact while we're inside. Oh, the cheese from Legorve.
And Nebula just doesn't care. I don't think we get the difficult print either, so Legorve's going to... Nope. We go for the purloin, though.
Purloin in empty space. Legorve is just throwing every trick they have at Nebula here to try to stave off elimination in this match. We're going to go back to where we've already gone, and they see it! Nebula sees it! Nebula susses out the crazy moves and wins the match.
What a shot from Nebula, just completely all over everything Legorve is trying to do.
Wow. I mean, that's a good question too, right? Maybe the first few things you get away with, but then you're just stacking aggression upon aggression. That had all the makings of a standard spread out veranda game that tests the sniper's patience, and instead it ends up anything but, with just a litany of crazy moves at the end. We finish the print with the briefcase. We contact invalidly, illegally in a conversation we're not actually in, but it's a green, and we run off, and then we purloin in the middle of nowhere. We don't hit the difficult. Maybe we go for the purloin because we didn't hit the difficult. We go to statues right afterwards, and it's just too much. And that is the story of the game for Legorve, is so many things that almost work but don't.
All right, well, that is Nebula affirmatively taking the set, but we still have 3 more games to play to see how the rest of this set shakes out, and Nebula will be coming back again as Wheels, this time on Veranda, in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Your predicted scoreline is looking pretty darn good right now, Corvus. These last 3 games may or may not matter. They probably won't, but you never know, and it's always going to be fun to see if, yes, if Spies are more aggressive. I'd say that, except Nebula already did this earlier too, so maybe this is how they would have played even if the match were still in doubt, but it is not in doubt. Nebula has won and is just trying to rack up tiebreakers at this point. We're going to microfilm early. We're going to green flirt early. This, on the other hand, may be a little more aggressive, but it's well-timed. The Ambassador and Toby are on the other side of the venue, and we have cover, so that's pretty much a perfect situation on microfilm anyway, but we do take a highlight for it because of that. Very good awareness from Legorve.
Yeah, we have plenty of time left in the set, but I think Nebula's going to try to keep the pressure up. We saw it in some of the previous games where Nebula just kept his foot on the gas, and Veranda's a good place to do that, because if you can finish a Veranda game at a time when the sniper's not expecting it, it can be extremely powerful.
Yeah, it absolutely can, and yeah, if you're Nebula, I think you still want to play something close to your normal game. Are we in this conversation?
We're not in this conversation.
We're not in this conversation, and we're not going to turn our head and look at anyone. We're going to walk right afterwards, and Legorve is all over it. That's actually pretty darn impressive on Veranda.
Yeah, I mean, the sniper angle does not make that kind of thing easy to really be certain about. I think we must have had just a lot of focus on us. Maybe for the microfilm stuff, you have to be looking at that idle and seeing, hey, wait a second, Wheels is not idling. And I'm almost a little surprised Nebula didn't try to go for the transfer animation standing in that conversation, but it doesn't matter. Legorve knows, and Legorve takes the shot.
That is excellent, and I like the styling. I like the little flex from Legorve. It says, look, this match might not have gone my way, but that is still a really good shot. Again, on Veranda. That's the kind of thing you're going to notice on a lot of venues, but with all the chaos of Veranda, to notice that someone was not turning their head and left too quick and all that stuff, that is a very good awareness, and it makes you wonder what could have been if those kind of moments happened a little bit earlier.
All right, well, here comes Legorve on his final spy game of this match, not of the tournament. Still 2 more matches to play, but the last one that we will be seeing today, and I can say that with certainty, on Taeyen, which is going to be Nebula's final single, in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, tough match for Legorve, but you can still try to finish strong, and we're going to bug immediately on Taeyen. So that is absolutely a strong start to the strong finish.
Yeah, I think seeing this is, it's just impossible. We're so far back at the time that it happens.
Yeah, you're going to credit it, but you were going to credit some bugs on Taeyen anyway, and this tracks. Legorve bugs as often as they contact on Taeyen, and why not?
3 minutes on the clock with that bug in hand. Legorve can just play a very quiet game at this point, 34%. And okay, we saw in a couple of earlier games where Nebula was able to credit these bugs to Legorve or take these shots. Here, you just want to be an AI that happens to go to statues and otherwise is the most boring person in the party.
Yeah, it could be that. Although I wonder, with the match kind of already in hand like this, if maybe we try something a little more fun, if we try the fingerprint again, or more likely a green purloin. I will say that, in my numbers at least, that is kind of the triumvirate of things that snipers can be vulnerable to. I tend to think of it as green purloins, bugs, and prints. Which do they lose to the most? And by a slight margin, it is green purloins for Nebula. So pretty understandable. The rate isn't too bad. It's a little under 40%. When somebody's a green purloin, spies win almost 40% of the time. But that's kind of where I would lean here, especially on Tan, because it can be very hard to see that list for a while. There's a green flirt for Legorve. That's going to bring us up all the way to 85% with 2 minutes left. And that is more than enough time on a place like Tan, where mission density is at an all-time high.
Yeah, we've been highlighted. Okay, it's brought back down to neutral. I was going to become very, very upset at that highlight. Just a 2-minute delayed bug highlight or something. But we take the innocent drink, and okay, we still have 100 seconds to finish this game.
Yeah, and this actually also is on point for Legorve. Legorve's drink take rate of like innocent drink takes, it's among the highest you'll see of any player. It's over 40%. Legorve, and that actually probably goes to some of the timing issues we observed earlier, which is to say they take drinks at about the rate they're supposed to. Most spies take them at less than half the rate they're supposed to compared to AIs. And that might not hurt them here with the bug in hand already, but with the drink in hand as well, it's kind of just the kind of thing that I think has probably hurt them in general with the pacing issues. It looks like it might actually be fingerprint and not purloin, as I was wondering earlier here.
Yeah, we were in that conversation for well over 2 minutes without moving, and now we have no print actually off of that case, interestingly enough. So we go into conversation with the double agent, and we could just pull the trigger on this sometime in the next minute.
Yeah, we absolutely could, and we're being offered... no, we're not being offered a drink. I think we're still finishing our drink. Someone near us is being offered a drink. Toby's not sure where to go next, but I gotta imagine they're gonna come back to us pretty soon. There is some more lowlights coming out from Nebula, and this party's actually pretty pared down, and suddenly I'm honestly not sure who's ahead.
Yeah, and the double agent is unfortunately not in conversation at this point, so it could be a while before we're able to pull the trigger. Nope, never mind. It comes directly to us.
Yep, that's what happens sometimes. There's the contact. It is a white. 30 seconds left. More lowlights coming out. There are only 5 suspects left, and it doesn't matter. Wheels is one of them. Shot in the back of the party just because being there is suspicious at all. And this is what I was talking about. Legorve kind of making it feel a little close here late.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's just a solid game after that initial bug, and there's not much you can necessarily do on Taeyin if you miss that bug, because the spies don't have to go that far out of their way. Now there's a question of how exactly Legorve would have finished that game if he'd had to, but okay, so we are all the way to 9-6 with Legorve sniping this final game against Nebula's small man on Taeyin. What other way could we possibly have wrapped up this set track?
It has to be just like this, and with some genuine tension, because if Nebula wins, your 10-6 prediction will be dead on.
All right, well, we'll get into the game. Nebula playing as Smallman on the final set, the final game of this set in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
It's the best and worst way to end, really. Oh, and we missed the pass. There we go, a little angry camera shake from Nebula. It's not going to matter, but boy, what a way to start.
Yeah, we were not on camera at all for that, but it is a little silly.
It is a little silly, and the shoji definitely helps you there. That's the kind of small twitch, no pun intended, that you are less likely to have. Oh, there it is. And Legorve does not care. Catches Nebula on Veranda and on Taeyin for tiny little pathing and pad issues. That is the kind of Legorve that I thought we were going to see the whole match, but ultimately, the sniper was not the problem. Ultimately, the problem was the spy games that just didn't quite get clinched.
All right, and that is Legorve sweeping the final 3 games and keeping this set extremely close, 9-7. You love to see it. Of course, congratulations to Nebula for the win. Congratulations to both players for playing a very close set.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I mean, you correctly predicted the winner. Guggy and I correctly predicted the score, is how I'm going to choose to look at it. Guggy even said,
I said it was 9-7. I just said the hard part is choosing which is which.
That's right. You opened with 9-7. That's the only part you were sure of, and then you thought about which player to pick. And I had the same problem as you. And I think, given the way those spy games went for Legorve, like I said, you just don't have to change very much to flip this outcome. And that's kind of what we expected when we saw these players. That on paper, this was going to be a really close one, and it did end up that way in the final accounting.
All right. Well, we don't have a new avatar to put on this bracket because we are still in the round robin and at the very beginning of the round robin. But as the round robin shapes up, you can continue to come here for the scores and the scenarios. We are going to be back here at this same channel, different crew, in just under 5 hours for our next cast. So look forward to that. But in the meantime, congratulations to both players for the very close set. Congratulations, of course, to Nebula for the win. Thank you, Guggy, for hopping on as our desk analyst.
Woo.
And thank you, Track, for coming on and casting with me.
It was my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We will, like I said, be back here in just under 5 hours. Until then, everybody stay safe, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next time.